What do we make of the term Islamophobia? Well, actually, its origins are surprising. And here, Douglas Murray unpacks it in an interview and gives his reflections on why the popularization of this term is dangerous. And it actually serves only the Islamist extremists, surprise, surprise, in order to further their agenda. Have a watch.
On that note, what do you think of the term or the word Islamophobic or Islamophobia? Because I understand what people mean when they say it, but somebody was conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and I'm sympathetic to the argument that you can have legitimate criticism of Israel, and it doesn't mean you hate Jews. Mm-hmm. And people often will say people misuse that on both sides.
Sure,
but the same people who kind of will die on that hill, of course, will also say that you're Islamophobic for having a conversation like this. And I find it interesting because it seems like kind of the same thing.
Well, they are similar in certain rhetorical ways. I don't think they're at all similar.
Let me clarify what I mean. I feel like the word Islamophobia, it's not the same thing as racism. Like, you can have racism when you say, I don't like that people from these countries or whatever. That's racism. That's prejudice. Islamophobia seems like it's a made-up term to get you to not criticize Islamic.
It is a made-up term. It was made up by the Muslim Brotherhood some decades ago.
Can you explain that? I don't think people know that.
Yeah, it's a term, the Muslim Brotherhood, which is one of the most effective organizations, actually, of the latter half of the 20th century. They inserted this into the dialogue, and it really started to come to prominence in around the 1980s. And it was recognized. It was wheeled out because it was recognized by the Brotherhood and its affiliates to be a very useful way to cow, particularly Westerners who do not want to be seen as bigoted. Mm-hmm. We in our societies in the West fear the charge of bigotry. And so if somebody uses it against us, even falsely, it can have a terrible stain.
Well, it's like pedophile.
Yes, it's like
pedophile. And
absolutely.
It's like you're stuck defending yourself in this completely ridiculous.
And some of it will stick. So it has been used very cynically as a tactic. Now, because it's a recent invention, there's been a lot of muddying of the waters, and a lot of people don't realize what it is, and they don't really. Is it possible to criticize Israel without being anti-Semite? Yes. Is it possible to criticize any tenet of Islam or the behavior of any Muslim without being accused of Islamophobia? No. No. I mean, people think anti-Semitism is overused. Wait till they see Islamophobia. That is just, people get hosed down by that. And I reject it because, among other things, well, first of all, it's inexact as a term because a phobia is an irrational fear of something. And there's every reason to have a rational fear of aspects of Islam. Fundamentalist Islam is something one should be rationally fearful of, concerned about, worried about. The second thing is that it seems to me that it sets up an entirely impossible situation, which is if you are going to be accused of Islamophobia for criticizing, for instance, jihadism, Muslim radicalism, Muslim Brotherhood style activity, ISIS style activity, pointing out that groups like ISIS, groups like Hamas, they do quote Islamic scripture all the time, and they believe they have the correct interpretation of the Quran, Hadith, the life of Muhammad. Can you have any of that discussion without being accused of Islamophobia? No, not really. I mean, we've been trying for decades, and we in the West have been dancing around this. But, you can be the most secular leftist French cartoonist showing that you are trying to have the right to ridicule the Muslim faith in the same way as you ridicule the Jewish faith and the Christian faith and all other things, and you'll be called an Islamophobe, and in the cases of Charlie Hebdo, you'll have your offices shot up and your staff murdered in Paris in 2015. Mm-hmm. This thing of turning rational, is it a phobia of cartoonists in Europe to worry about a man with a Kalashnikov coming through the door if you draw a cartoon that is said to offend the sensibilities of some Muslims. That's not an irrational fear. It's a totally rational fear. And once you go down from that, there's a whole set of other things which are totally rational fears. I have a completely rational fear of, for instance, what I see as being the accelerating backwards bigotries in societies that import very large numbers of people from certain Muslim cultures without integrating them, because I think that there are terrible problems that can come along with it. We in Britain had a very, very visceral one in recent decades with the rape gangs in the north of England, and not just in the north of England, but across England, which were gangs of Muslim men who were, it sounds like an obscene far-right fantasy, but oh no, it happened, where thousands of young white girls, many working class, were groomed and gang raped by men who were doing it because the girls were white and because they believed that they were, as famously been said, easy meat. And now, when we became aware of that, I remember this very, very clearly in the UK, when we became aware of that in the 2000s, the story was covered over because Muslim groups and others said it was Islamophobic. And Channel 4 and other media entities who, are left-wing, when they tried to look at the story, were accused of bigotry and Islamophobia and told to shut up. And when a left-wing Labour MP mentioned this, she was called a racist and an Islamophobe and told to shut up, even though this was happening to young girls in her own constituency. And when care workers got worried that children were disappearing from the care homes, they were told to shut up because they were Islamophobic, and so on and so on. So, yes, people can use all sorts of terms to try to shut down their opponents or their critics. And we have lived through a period where that has been done with enormous liberality by a lot of people who have called anyone they don't like racist, anyone they don't like misogynistic, or anyone they don't like homophobic or transphobic or whatever. We've got a long period of the name calling. And some of it has been very effective, and some of it has been deliberately disingenuous. And I think the Islamophobia one is one example of that. The effects of that are terrible. And by the way, the inevitable effect of all of that, going back to your point about possibility of electing actually far-right governments, or certainly governments with much stricter, perhaps potentially unpleasant policies, is the same thing. This stuff has been thrown around so much that people don't believe it anymore.
So I think Douglas is right. And, one of the main reasons that I set up JTV is because I realise that it is ideas that shape the goodness in this world, but also the problems with our world. And that yes, it's sometimes we have to go onto the military battlefield. Sometimes we have to go and deal with things in a very messy, confrontational way. But actually, at its root, if you want to deal with it, if you want to stop the reasons for conflicts in the world, if you want to stop the reasons for, not just on a national scale, on an international scale, but even in our own personal lives, it all has to start off with ideas. You change the way people understand, perceive the world. You change the way people have narratives about the world, about themselves. Then you can change the world. And what the term Islamophobia, it seems, is doing, it's not about protecting Muslims from persecution. And, I don't believe that any group of people or individuals should be persecuted simply because of a religion they practice. It's about their actions. It's about, do they have extremist beliefs? And there are, unfortunately, plenty of Muslims who do have extremist beliefs, but also carry out extremist actions. And the suppression of this, dealing with this through use of the term, any criticism at all is Islamophobic, is a way of stifling people from tackling challenging ideas. having the difficult conversations about issues within Islam and Islamic texts. And the stifling of ideas stops you from actually dealing with the roots of the issue. And it's intentional. It's done intentionally in order to stop the West from dealing with the problem at hand. So they create a culture of fear and say, well, if you deal with this, if you talk about Islam and problems that exist within religious views, then you are bigoted, you are committing a hate crime. And it's very cynical. And again, this has nothing to do with saying all Muslims X. It's about saying, hold on, what is it that's animating so many people in your community towards supporting Hamas or Hezbollah or extremism? What is leading people to do acts of violence within your community? If you won't let us deal with this and you're just going to cry racist, Islamophobic, all that, you're going to be able to continue to dominate and control us. And that can't be permitted or allowed. We should all be able to freely discuss ideas, things that people believe. And there is a difference between that and saying every single person equals X. We're not talking about making generalizations. We're talking about addressing the ideas that animate extremism and violence. And that is why this channel certainly will never stop going for the big ideas and understanding what it is within all kinds of ideologies, no matter how politically incorrect it may be, to understand what it is that animates them. And you know, one of the signs that a society is in danger is when you have a suppression of ideas. That's what leads to sinister political control and control by people who are malevolent. We saw that in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church suppressed the dissemination of the Bible and learning in order to have and maintain control. And it was only with the Protestant Reformation, that you started to see people becoming a lot more educated. It's actually very relevant to Hanukkah right now. The story of Hanukkah is when the Greeks tried to suppress any Jewish practice and Jewish study. They didn't try to kill our physical body, but our soul and our ability to understand divine wisdom. And so this is quite a timely topic because Hanukkah is coming up now. And we said absolutely not. We have the right to question everything, challenge everything, and to pursue knowledge in the way that God wanted us to. And of course, there is also that famous saying or prediction that society that burns books, I think it was said with regard to Nazi Germany, when they burned books, Jewish books that didn't agree with Nazi philosophy, will soon one day burn people and kill people. And we'll see it. And, you know, I really believe that in a different kind of way, that applies here too. The suppression of the ability to discuss ideas, and even difficult ones, and difficult issues that we're facing, the burying our heads in the sand, that's going to take you on a very dark path. So we have to talk about this and deal with it head on. If you just hold on for a moment, there's something big I wanted to flag with you. We talk a lot about the forces lined up against Israel today, but there's one power, one massively influential player that almost never gets spoken about openly, a state that smiles at the West while quietly empowering Israel's enemies. It's a story that's been hiding in plain sight until now. Have a watch of the trailer for our new JTV Plus documentary called Qatar, the Great Deceiver, and you can watch it in full now by clicking the link below in the video description. Qatar, a gleaming nation on the Arabian Peninsula. All glass towers and gold-plated excess, where the super rich jet in for the art fairs and World Cups, where Western universities open campuses and diplomats toast to partnership. But look closer at the glittering mirage, and the shimmer reveals something sinister. For 2 decades, this tiny state has been executing the greatest con in modern geopolitics, convincing the world it's a bridge between civilizations, while secretly bankrolling the arsonists on both sides. The name Qatar should make Western leaders shudder. Instead, they shake hands with its emirs, park fighter jets on its soil, and call it an ally. On October 7, 2023, 2003, the mask slipped, as 1,200 souls were slaughtered in Israel in a symphony of savagery orchestrated by Hamas. The world saw where the terrorist leaders live, not in tunnels beneath Gaza, but in luxury villas in Doha, under Qatar's protection. And as the bodies were being counted, Qatar's leaders didn't condemn the massacre, they called for restraint. This is the untold story of the Gulf's master deceiver, how a nation smaller than Connecticut is playing the West for fools. As you are watching this, billions are flowing from Doha into extremist networks, while Western elites cash Qatari checks and sing its praises. In this JTV Plus documentary, we follow the money, we expose the double game, and we ask the question that should haunt every Western capital: how are we letting them get away with it? To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.